Okay, so try number 2 because, well, let me not even go into that. So, I completely forgot this in my part, well, not my part 1, my part 0, technically, to, what am I titling it? Did I become an atheist in 6 months or something like that? I think that's, the title's something like that. In my part 0, I mentioned the whole thing with, like, resource centers or Christian resource centers and, like, being surrounded by bug-eyed chomos and serial rapists, and then having bug-eyed chomos preach sermons, well, quote-unquote sermons, really doing classes, quote-unquote, but I'm not even going to go back into that. Point is, I forgot this really good example that happened recently. So, at this one resource center, this lady had came with her two daughters. One is 17, the other's 19. Now, of course, with this, I guess I could say staff member, pretty much. With this guy, I don't think he worked there when I first started going, but at some point he did start. And of course, I already have discernment. I can already tell these people, not to mention just the different stuff that he would do and say to me, especially in the past. Not like anything crazy, but just the usual stuff that people do when they like you. And then especially what I've noticed since I've been where I'm at now, where like really starting to understand a thing people used to say where they'd be like, if a boy is mean to you, he likes you. But I didn't really experience that before. But what I can say is that when old guys like you, or quote unquote like, I really hate how the terms sexuality, like, and attraction have been flipped around, even with quote unquote hetero stuff, which I mentioned in my video that I'm gonna upload, where I went into a long rant about pairs or paraphilias. But anywho, because I don't want to go back into that too much. But yeah, so like anywho, when old guys like you, they'll due to feeling guilty about it, and then like the other spiritual stuff with that, they'll like start to treat you funny. And then of course, if you're in like a situation like I'm in, and you ran away or you got kicked out, and so now you're quote unquote homeless, and especially in an environment like this where you're the quote unquote lazy bum or the vulnerable, sorry, pitiful, bummy person, quote unquote, that they're helping, quote unquote. That alone creates a complex, and then they can also like make it seem like they're treating you kind of funny because you're broke and not because they like you, but they feel guilty about it. This is also goes along with the thing with like how people like this will sometimes be paranoid about your age, and they'll just like do weird mean stuff to you. And I remember he even made this one lady mad. And then I know I mentioned in my video that I haven't even uploaded yet, I mentioned that I remember hearing about how, like, especially in South Africa, there's a lot of similar perversion type stuff going on there that goes on here. I mean, it's like it happens everywhere, but in some places it's worse. So like America's the #1 destination for like human trafficking victims, for all types of trafficking, not just like one type. And this is all ages and genders, of course. But then also, like even with the chomo stuff and things like that, there's like a lot of stuff with that there. And it even makes me think back to this girl who told me that like a lot of the it seems like a lot of guys from Nigeria or DL. It makes me think back to the whole Jezebel, like, quote unquote narc thing, and how like a lot of people say that I've heard that 90% of quote unquote black men are on the DL. I wouldn't say that, but I would say any dude that walks around his butt out and is a street dude, and of course especially if he's Jezebelic or what people now call a quote unquote narc, he would have really multiple paraphilias, because that's typically what happens. Not even just with the Jezebelic Marine Kingdom stuff and being a quote unquote narc and having a PD, but just like the issues that they would gain from all the trauma that made them a quote unquote narc, which I hate psych labels, but I'm just using the term so people know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I seen this video, and it was like 90% of black men on the down low. Now, one thing I will say though is that the black label wasn't made for Africans, so Africans aren't quote unquote black, but it just makes me think about that. So, anywho, to get back to the point, because that's what this guy also makes me think about, or he reminds me of. Not that that's like really an excuse, but it just makes me think about that. Anywho, so he had already like done a lot of weird mannerisms and stuff to me, and said like some weird stuff, so I already knew, and I already have good discernment anyways, but it's really unfortunate that like these people are everywhere. And one thing that I started to realize a while ago is that mostly everybody is at least a fibophile or hebephile. But anyhow, so yeah, I was really shocked when I eventually seen his wife and son, but it shouldn't have surprised me, because like typically these guys are married and the wives know, and they don't care, they're in on it, and they know that they're into all types of stuff sexually and doing all types of stuff to people and with other people and all that. And so anywho, to get back to the point, luckily I only went on a rant for like 5 minutes or so. So the lady came with her daughter to the resource center, and then this guy that I just described, he started talking about how they were pretty and just all types of stupid, crazy stuff. And he was saying, I wanted to get your daughters on my podcast and let your daughters come talk to me on my podcast. And she was like, talk to you about what on a podcast, about what? And then he just started laughing and smiling and doing all that weird stuff and rocking side to side. And he was like, well, it's a Christian podcast. It's a Christian podcast. That little predatory stuff where like they try to, there's a word, deflame, I don't even know, but they try to like derail, I guess I could also say, the whole conversation, and kind of like just like throw up something to make it seem like it's not bad. And that's even a big thing I've noticed with like Let Me Help You Lunatics, which is kind of a side topic, but I have a whole playlist about that. And especially going back to the ms.s and J situation, which I think that those videos are titled The Cycles of Life, or Let Me Help You Lunatic something, or something like that. If I can find it, I'll put it in the description. I typically can find the part 1, but I sometimes have trouble finding the part 2. And I've had a lot of Let Me Help You Lunatic situations that I feel are great examples, but I definitely feel like the ms.s and J situation is a great example of how predatory Christian people and religious people can be. And for religious slash spiritual people in general, I feel like my re-upload of the voodoo cult lady situation is a good example of that, but then maybe not really, because I'd have to explain the backstory to it, so I don't know. But yeah, so he was saying all that. Then the girl's mom had went to the guy who owns the place, and she had pointed at the dude, because he was like right there behind her, and she just had like a confused look on her face, and she was like, what's up with him, to the guy who owns the place, and he just didn't say anything. And it's like, one of the things about it though is that people, they don't really want to confront people about this type of stuff. Like, I mean, I know people in this situation, people could say, well, they're both women, but it's still like, that's not even really the point, because it is still, it's just so many obvious issues with it. There's so many obvious issues with the whole situation. And crap, I even could throw in that I forgot about that situation a little while ago with some separate dude. I don't really know if he's like a literal pastor, but I know that he volunteers with some church, and he's kind of very reminiscent to the whole Santa Cruz, let me know when you're ready for change and when you're ready to fix your situation, and pretty much the whole blaming me for an assumption about what my situation really is. But I can also say that one of the things about it is that, one, nobody cares about what you escaped and how this is finally your safety. And then also, since a lot of people see being quote unquote homeless as a rock bottom, they don't really care if somebody just got thrown out of trafficking, or escaped trafficking, or escaped some domestic violence situation, or got kicked out anyways, because they just see it as like, well, even if it's like a transitional period where this person finally has safety, in my eyes, that's what I consider a rock bottom and the worst predicament you can be in. So I don't really care. But generally, people don't give a crap about any of that anyways, what you have going on or why. And that's why I say it's really unfortunate that like you spend your whole life trying to figure out how to get out of an abuse situation. Then once you get out, people talk junk about you and bully you and treat you terribly and want you locked up for that too, because now they have a new label for your situation. Because generally people treat you the same in every situation, but with a different excuse. Anywho, so other thing with the Santa Cruz priest, this was a guy that was like, you're a beautiful 13-year-old, and what else was it? You're a beautiful 13. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna let you tempt me with your prostitution, and let me know when you're ready for change, because you can still be helped and all that bull crap. So this guy, this was also a couple months ago. Well, no, this was some months ago. The other situation with the resource center dude, this was recent. But anywho, he just kept asking me if I was legal and talking about he was a preacher and going on these weird religious rants and quoting scripture and then flipping it all around, stuff like that. So typical stuff. And then of course this is a white dude. Like I seen him cursing some guy out for saying that the creator's real name is Yah. And that even goes into the whole issue of Christians or Christendom in general, pagan Roman Catholicism, and of course Protestant. They really hate the Bible and they really hate the creator and they hate the Old Testament. And they don't even like the New Testament really. It's just all really false. But yeah, this dude was literally cursing this guy out a couple weeks ago for saying that the creator's name is Yah, and it was some other stuff he was saying that I can't even remember. And the same, are you legal? You need to let me know if you're legal, dude was like just talking junk to the guy and calling him a heretic and evil and a heathen and all types of stuff. And it's like, and then it's already like, but yeah. And another thing I think about with the resource center too that I can throw in, because I've already went way somewhere else kind of, is that like there was this one day where the guy was going on a rant about pretty much these like two gay guys, and it's like, I mean, I totally get it. Like, if you're gonna do either, people want to like sugarcoat stuff and not talk about what the Bible actually says, and I mean, yeah, so it makes sense that like he would mention this if he wants to consider himself like a real preacher, whatever he's calling himself. I don't even know, but it's like, that's why I say that it's really just been a scapegoat. Because at the end of the day, people are like this because they're getting turned out, not even just due to SA, but due to family dysfunction in general, and general like emotional neglect, and also generational stuff. And you can be born that way due to those types of things as well. And as I have a whole video about, typically, if you're turned out, your parents probably are too. Like your parents probably like the same gender, your whole family's probably bi or something like that, but they just won't admit it. And then it also goes into the whole thing of like people people go on these rants, but nobody's really being delivered. They want people to pretend to be delivered, or pretend that this is a choice, and that's also really bullcrappy. And then there was something else with that. Oh yeah, but going back to my main point, it's like, okay, we can use being quote unquote homo as the scapegoat all day long, but it's like, what about all the chomos and the serial rapists that nobody cares about? And these are the loudest people in these settings. And then it's like, it's just so much I could say about it. And then there was something else. Oh yeah, and then it's like the issue in this situation. Crap. Besides like two guys dating, that's besides the point. It's the fact that it's literally a 100% daddy issue, paraphilia situation, with the common situation of like the 30-year-old guy who's dating the 80-year-old dude due to daddy issues and grooming, and the dude like just like with the other situation with the old guy who would just get out of prison, getting the younger guy drunk and then forcing him to give him massages. I know I mentioned that a little while back in one of my videos about paraphilias and Marine Kingdom agents. I don't even remember what it was titled, but I probably mentioned this dude so many times. I call him the ballistic butthole dude, and And this is a separate situation from the one I was just talking about with the resource center. And it even makes me think back to that whole thing I made a video about in 2023 or 2024 titled "You Can't Beat Your Kids in Public These Days," with the dude who was dating that young boy going on that stupid rant about people beating their kids and how the kids are disrespectful. How do you people expect for us to be respectful to you while you're dating us and doing all this weird stuff and trying to like pretend that we're on the same level and then torturing us at that, and then you want us to respect you as well? It's never gonna work out. So yeah, there's just general paraphilias and stuff in those issues, and that's the really common things I've already said. Because guys aren't even taught that they can also be victims, even when they've already been victimized before, which has already messed them up. They're not taught to know that they're also the target of grooming and SA, and that's why I noticed that I see a lot of situations, especially with um like street kids and then younger homeless guys and just guys in general, really like it's even a really common thing for like, how do I even put it? Since the guys who like the same gender are often treated worse, especially if they have like certain hormonal and spiritual stuff going on to where they have certain mannerisms, including being what's now called neurodivergent or autistic or whatever, that can also give them like certain mannerisms. And so that makes like the whole situation very overt, including the thing with the peacock spirit. And so they often get treated worse because sometimes when they're quote unquote feminine, it's overt that they like guys, or they supposedly do, because they may just be have feminine mannerisms. Because like street dudes, they all like dudes, but nobody's gonna say anything to them because they have the false sense of masculinity that people have been taught to have, which goes back to the whole thing of everything's quote unquote gay, but yet everybody actually is gay. So that's another thing. Oh yeah, but I know, like I even mentioned how when I was in Oregon, I met this one street kid who had stepkids his age, and it's just like a common thing for young guys to get groomed by women and men, to be honest, and nobody really. It's like nobody cares, and then if the person's the same gender, they're just quote unquote gay, and if it's a woman, they're just quote unquote lucky. Okay, two. Now I know that I had made a video a while back, I think, talking about this whole situation where when I first came where I currently am, which is somewhat how I ended up meeting Ms.S, but technically I met her at the library by this church. It's really a long story, but I guess to summarize, there was the whole situation where I had went there and I asked to use the bathroom for some water, and luckily, unlike the churches in like when I was on the West Coast and these like mostly white areas, they actually let me in instead of like just trying to straight up get me in jail right then and there and telling me I can't come in. Luckily, they didn't do that day, because I did used to have a lot of stuff back then, so sometimes they would like play games about that. The pastor is nice, and I know that he can tell that nobody listens or cares about anything that he's telling any of them. I mean, well, most of them don't care about anything that he's telling any of them. And what I'm also going to hopefully go into, if I remember, is that after a recent situation where like he had donated some money to me when I was outside busking my books and trying to get people to buy my books. It kind of just reminded me that, like I was thinking back then, the people at the church really tried to keep me from like meeting him or talking to him, and they even like one lady, which actually funny enough, I finally got a job after trying to get one for 32 years. She's actually one of like the head people, it seems. And so anywho, she had actually claimed that I was coming to assassinate him. And it's like, I mean, yeah, I guess people will be paranoid, even though people here pretend that I'm way older than I actually am. But it seems like they still really don't believe that, even though they claim that they do. So like people are gonna be even more paranoid because they're used to like young people being forced to like go to church by their parents or grandma. Then they already knew that like I was in a screwed up situation, and it just made them. I mean, I can see how that can make somebody assume crazy stuff, but it's also like a lot of pride with that. It's also like, oh, our pastor's like God does. Not that that's how he wants them to see him at all, but like in their eyes he's like all this and all that, and people are coming to try to hurt him because he's all this, and it's like, girl, bye. But anywho, what was, oh yeah, but anywho, this was the whole situation where like I asked them to use the bathroom, and then that lady was in there about to beat that infant with a I can't even say, I could say like a 8 by 12, and then I tried to snatch it out her hand, and then she ended up running out the bathroom and going to get the lady I was just mentioning, who's also like one of the head people at my job, and she got a couple other elders, I guess they would be called. And then they came to confront me and tell me how, quote unquote, she's a mother, a grandmother, and God will handle this, and this, some stupid stuff, some stupid mess, and that whole situation. So I just want to give that backstory because I know I'm probably gonna forget. So, I guess I kind of already said the whole thing. Like, that just made me think back to the whole issue of religion. And then another thing that happened last Sunday, because um, I wanted to see if they give out food or just, and I also wanted to get out the heat. And I found out while I was walking a couple weeks ago that at this other place, this other resource center type place, like some of the staff, or I guess maybe all of them, or all the different volunteers, and some of the college and high school kids that volunteer sometimes, they go to this one church. And so I went there Sunday, and I actually ended up meeting some people that had volunteered at this one dinner one time. But anyway, to get to the point, so they're also like an example of how I really have started to understand what people mean when they say religion can be a coping mechanism. But it's almost like I kind of don't see how, because, like, I mean, at least when I think about it, if I was religious, it really would make me feel any better. I don't think it would help me really cope. But I can get how it can be, though. Especially if somebody, like, was at a rock bottom and then they found, quote unquote, God with the ineffable name doctrine stuff. I could see that, because, like, I get how why people point that out as like an issue when somebody says that, like, this happened and that happened and I finally called out to God. It does sound like it could be a placebo effect type thing. And then, like, with the ineffable name doctrine, just in general, it's like they can be like, who are people really talking about anyways? And it's like, it's just so much stuff with that. But anywho, these two people, this one, I mean, I guess she was like the wife or something like that. And then there was also this other dude, but the husband, the wife, this other dude that they were friends with or whatever. So for one, they were doing the whole paranoid about my age thing. There's a lot that I could say about that, but especially with the older, taller dude, I could tell that he really just wanted to get with me. That's why he was so paranoid about my age. He was literally doing the thing where, like, somebody is like, oh, I feel so bad, with a huge smile on their face and looking like they're getting an erection. That's just so annoying, to be honest. And then they, like, generally, it just made me think about how you can, like, get these OCD type spirits and just start getting these schizo OCD type ways, which I hate psych labels, but there definitely is, like, some symptoms that can go along with that, especially the OCD type thing. And I'm really trying to, like, figure out how to explain what happened with this whole situation. But I'm trying to look at my notes. Oh yeah, so the wife was homeless since 14, or in the streets since 14, quote unquote. I hate when people say in the streets, because that can mean, well, typically it just has a bad connotation. So I'm not really sure if she meant like full blown homeless, or if she just like meant in the streets, like because she did say her mom, her dad left when she was young, and her mom wasn't in her life. So that could mean full blown homeless, and or she just had to like do a lot of like outdoor activities or whatever, just due to not having anybody. Then the husband said that he was on drugs too. Oh yeah, then they had accused me of like being on substances, and it's like, I already have plenty of videos where I talk about what I have called the Caucasian addict projection, which I was originally gonna call the West Coast projection, but then I realized it's bigger than that. I don't like how the Caucasian community's drug issues that stem from the hippie era, the rock era, and them not policing their crime has been made the face of homelessness. But I also don't like how they project it onto other people, especially melanated people. Like, I remember when I was in Cali, and me and this one lady were always having people say, there's no way that you guys aren't on drugs and you're the only black people out here, and the only people who aren't on drugs are the two black people. That was always really annoying. And I also don't like how they make this idea that, like, whenever somebody is in a quote unquote bad situation or just like has some not ideal stuff going on, they have to make it about meth, heroin, and fent, whatever it's called. Like, even when people like Lil Uzi Vert were making those songs talking about fent, and I mean, even the rapper Fetty Wap, like, I mean, for Fetty, nobody really knew what that was in the quote unquote black quote unquote community, but like when Lil Uzi Vert made that one remix of Hypher by Drake and Lil Wayne, and he said something about fent. Like, I mean, we knew that they were talking about some type of substance, but we didn't really know what they were talking about. But yeah, and then like the Fetty Wap thing didn't what's the word? Nobody like really, that didn't click in anybody's head. Like, especially like in the hoods and stuff that I'm from, that didn't click in anybody's head till really recent times. Like, as more documentaries and quote unquote interviews and documentaries have came out about the fent crisis. Like, when people heard Fatty Wap, they just thought, okay, that's a weird name. Like, what does that mean, fatty? But nobody knew what that stuff meant in our communities. And there's a lot that I could say about that. And I even think about the documentary actually that I was gonna mention. It of course got removed recently by YouTube, but somebody had like re-uploaded one of those really really old PSAs about Satanism in suburbia pretty much. It was some Christendom bullcrap, but the stuff that they were talking about was true, but they were still wrong on like the idea that Protestant was gonna like really fix anything and that Protestant wasn't also the issue. I mean, generally without Christendom there wouldn't be the Church of Satan or any of that stuff anyways. Like, sure, people have always worshipped like the devil. I mean, all religions are a part of the NWO and worship the devil, but people weren't like going into the pure doctrine of Lucifer like that until people started trying to escape Christendom, which there's a lot that I could say with that really. And then the Aleister Crowley dude as well. Then even Adolf, like, they were both hardcore addicts, and that even goes back to the people, especially in the quote unquote white community, becoming hardcore addicts due to the trauma they go through in Catholicism. And Aleister Crowley is a really good example of that, because that's generally what happened to him, which he's even a good example of how you literally, the point of Christ is to really get you to worship the devil, because he literally went from Catholicism to being one of the most prominent Luciferian leaders and occultic leaders. And it just reminds me what Albert Pike said, that people go from being disillusioned with Christianity to the pure doctrine of Lucifer. And it also makes me think about how to even be a Satanist high priest, you have to be a Christian priest for at least like 3 years or something like that, or a pastor, which just about all pastors are Masons anyways, even unknowingly through being a part of Greek letter colleges, which is a really big thing in uppity quote unquote black areas as well, which is one of the reasons why they pick up these pride and Jezebel and perversion spirits anyhow. But yeah, what else was I saying with that? Where was I? Hold up. So yeah, and then whenever you point out how like having white people project that stuff on you who are having on substances, it's just annoying. And then it's also like, you were homeless at 14. You know good and well that what happened to you in your situation had nothing to do with you being on substances. You couldn't have gotten a place anyways, and you could have a place and be on meth anyways. Like, I still always, this is another reason why I always mention, like, when you go out to these like rural areas and there's like this white family and they all look inbred and they're all on meth and heroin, but they own a gas station and they probably own a farm or property as well. Or even these like places in the Appalachians, which is where really all the welfare actually goes. They like, a lot of them are on substances because, for one, like, the lack of opportunities is just really depressing. but a lot of them are on substances, but they all own their own houses, so it doesn't really mean anything. But I'm not gonna act like substances can't keep somebody in a bad situation, but that just it's never the cause. It's like after the fact coping mechanism, so it's really irrelevant anyhow. So yeah, there was that. That's kind of irrelevant, but I just really that whole thing is just really annoying to me. So that's why I always mention the issue of what I like to call the Caucasian addict projection. And one thing I can also say is that being that I've been chronically ill since 14 and I've generally been, due to like health issues that I've been gaslit about for forever, I guess I could say, I've generally been like 80 to 94 pounds my whole life at this point, especially since like 11 or younger. And then, of course, once I lost the metabolic syndrome weight at 14, as I always talk about in my videos about solving my health issues, I dropped down to 80 pounds and I pretty much got stuck there. So it's like, yeah, like in my previous situation when I was living with relatives, people could just assume that I'm sick or being starved at home. But now I can get how that could also be used, especially when I was in Cali when they weren't claiming I was secretly 9, which is stupid anyways. But when they weren't doing that, they could just say, well, you look like you're on substances. I mean, generally, my eyes are clear. The only real thing is that I look visibly, physically unhealthy. But anywho, then they started telling me about how some weird stuff, some weird like dogma doctrine type stuff. They told me, hold it. Okay, hold up. I don't know if I was hearing footsteps or a bug, but anywho. Or crap, the rats. Shoot, I forgot that I had this bagel over there. But let me get back to the point. So they told me that I remind them of this 16-year-old homeless boy that they had met when they were staying in another state, and how like he was a vagabond and how he said he was a J3W quote unquote. Now I'm not really sure what his ethnicity was and what his skin color was. Not that I mean skin color doesn't really even have anything to do really with quote unquote race or ethnicity, but I'm not sure if he's what people would consider quote unquote black. Not by like what they were saying. They said he had dreadlocks, but he was also from Cali. So I mean, for all I know, he could have been like a European Rev 29 from Cali. A lot of them are hippies with locks. And it's always one with locks that are the most racist, those Swedish and Irish people that like to have locks and crap, those are the same types of people that when I was in Santa Cruz, they let their 10 dogs off the leash to chase me because quote unquote they've never seen a ninja before, and then cursed me out for running because I was gonna get their dogs lost and hurt quote unquote. So I'm not really sure, but anywho, some 16-year-old boy that they met who was homeless, and he eventually admitted to them how old he was, and they said that he was like a nomad, and how I reminded them of him because like I had the same energy and the same like nomad vagabond. It's like I don't even consider myself a nomad or a vagabond. Like once I really got free from the gaslighting about how chronically ill I was, and I realized that I really couldn't do any of that stuff because I'm really sick, it was just kind of whatever. And I wasn't my end all be all. It's like people just they call themselves that because they don't really have an option and they don't really have a choice anyways. And I mean, who was lucky that he was able to find a way to even get into a hotel room and to make money to pay for it? It's like, I mean, if you can get that far, you're lucky. Crap, in some states you can't even get a hotel under 21. I mean, they'll still let you sometimes, but like they're not supposed to. And that alone is very problematic because people already don't have options. And so then, well, before that and especially after that, this is where stuff got even weirder and I kind of started to get a little scared. Okay. So, um, they asked me something about the typical stuff, something about parents, um, some other stuff I can't really remember. And then they went on this rant, especially mainly the boyfriend, really. And I think the wife was mostly quiet because she knows that he kind of is iffy. And so they pretty much were like saying that the reason I was in the situation I'm in is because I'm not accepting Christ, and I'm not accepting Jesus Christ, and how they called out the God and he changed their life, and he changed and fixed everything for them at their rock bottom, and how they were addicts, and I just hate when white people do that. I'm not gonna lie, like I can't stop talking about that, and it's really funny because it was like a few days after the whole situation. Um, when I went to the soup kitchen, and some Christian people that came to give out stuff, and this lady was talking about how she had just started giving out stuff with them again because they were treating her funny, because she used to use substances, and they kept telling her they were treating her funny, so she just like stopped wanting to be a part of a lot of stuff. And so this other lady had told me, when you're done with all this, let you know what, so you can get some. For one, I don't even use substances, and a lot of these rehab places, they started actually like giving people blood and pee test, because so many people have started to find out, especially in Texas, and through words from people who have been to Texas, so many people started to find out that all they had to do was lie and say that they were on substances, and then they could get housing for like some months or even a year or two in these rehab houses, and everybody started lying and saying that they were on drugs just to get housing. That's not really housing anyways. It's living in like a halfway house, pretty much like a group home. But I did hear that some of these programs did supposedly house people. I don't really believe a lot of that stuff, but maybe some of them really did, like get people or help people get their own actual place. And so yeah, too many people are lying about being on drugs and being an alcoholic to get something that they should be able to get help with anyways. And so you can't just run up in these rehab programs anymore. But anywho, it's like the whole when you're done with this, let me know. And then it's so annoying because it's like they're projecting their issues on to like especially people of my ethnicity, but it's like, for one, most of these people aren't even homeless anyways. These are pimps and stuff that come out here looking for victims. And then other people, they have homes, but they come to like the soup kitchens and stuff for food. Most of these people that come here aren't even homeless. So the fact that you white people who have been or are on substances come out here talking about some, when you're pretty much when you're ready to stop using meth or whatever in the world, let us know. And it's like, it's just really annoying. It's really, really annoying. It even makes me think back to the whole thing that I learned in Cali, but I also was reminded of when I was hanging around this other guy who we would talk about this whole thing and how we were noticing this together, that like when a white person who was on drugs would do something to like when they would vandalize the place, white people would come and talk junk to us and threaten us because they didn't want to call the police on their own people, who was it's some type of substance that they use. I can't even remember what it's called. I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's like if they smoke it or what they do with it, but it was something that like this white couple was on. They would like run around doing all types of stuff, and then um me and this other guy would get blamed for it even though they knew that we weren't doing it. And it was just like, it's just like how when I was in Cali, the white people would like come to me and they would be like, go back to Mexico, you nigger. But I'm pretty sure that they know I'm not Mexican, and they're upset about immigration, but they're not going to go to actual Mexicans and say that to their face. So they'll go let out all their anger on the black person. It's really all the same thing. So yeah, if a white person craps on the floor of a public restaurant, well, guess what? It's the nigger swap. Pretty much that's all that stuff is, and it's all really annoying. So anyhow, that just really makes me think about that. It's just always going to be really annoying. So then they went on this rant, and they were like I can tell you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It really reminds me of that whole Kundalini false deliverance ministry cult in the California mountains. I think it was not Bonnie Doon, Boulder Creek. I think it was Boulder Creek, and how they tried to do the false discernment spirit of crap. What was it called? I don't even remember what that thing was called. I don't know where this cut off at. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay, it was called the spirit of divination, and this had cut off somewhere. I think after that I said that I knew that that was all false and demonic. I was supposed to be making a documentary about cults. That's what all that was about. And I was supposed to be like investigating that. I was supposed to go back out there as well to make like more to make another video about that whole situation because I saw my part one, but I didn't end up being able to do that because of transportation stuff and then stuff with like my health issues. But well, I knew that that was demonic. I did kind of like get into like an OCD magical thinking type thing where I was like, okay, well, if there's a demonic side to that, then maybe there's a good side as well. And maybe it is true that like one day I will get help and I will be adopted, but it's like I've been trying to remind myself, especially the past 6 months, to stop thinking like that and to just focus on what I can do for me. And like I've said since six, if you want something done, all you got to do with yourself. And then also, as I always say, the reason you have to run away specifically is because there is no help. You have to save yourself. So I just don't want to do any more magical thinking type things. So yeah, that's what that reminded me of when they were going on that rant about how they can tell I haven't accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and pretty much, I guess I could say guilt trip, but I don't like saying victim blaming because I don't even like to even say that I'm like the quote unquote victim. Because I mean, I feel like to be a victim, I have to be letting somebody actually do something to me. But I guess I could say guilt tripping still. They were just like accusing me of stuff and then trying to blame me for stuff and then trying to say that I supposedly wasn't saved and hadn't accepted the Christ and hadn't cried out to the Christ in quote unquote God, and that's why my situation hadn't gotten better yet. And then when the guy was saying more stuff about how he used to be a vagabond and he mentioned the 16-year-old kid again and how I remind them of him and how he was like a vagabond nomad and wandering whatever. The guy said that I was running from he said that I was delusional. And this also goes back to the whole thing of them being paranoid about my age, especially the guys and especially the older guy, because of like him obviously wanting to get with me. And I believe that they were also trying to say I was delusional about my age, but I don't even really know though, because it wasn't really making sense. Every time I thought that I knew what he was talking about and I would ask him to clarify and ask him, do you mean this? He would just bring up the Christ and me not accepting the Christ again. Like, he had went on to say that I was running from responsibilities and I was delusional because I was trying to detach from emotions, which is immature. And I was pretty much trying to, like, detach from the fact that I'm a traumatized orphan, that my parents don't give a crap about me, and that's why I'm out here. And it's like, well, I'm not doing that. Shoot, I wasn't even detached from that reality well before running away. I mean, I literally had all the abuse evidence videos, and that in the support groups helped me break free from the gaslighting and cognitive dissonance, which I didn't even have cognitive dissonance about that. I generally had cognitive dissonance about the whole thing with the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That was the main thing. But as far as like, I mean, I always knew that, I knew I was being abused since 8 before I moved in with my mom and started going through the cash for kids system in Munchausen. So that wasn't anything that I was ever detached from. And then he was like, oh no. And then I was like, what do you mean I'm running from responsibilities? Do you mean like getting a job and like paying bills? And it's like, there's a lot that I could say about that just makes that weird, and it goes into the whole thing of how street kids aren't seen as kids, but that's kind of besides the point though. And like I did pay bills since 11, but it's like, I mean, I'm not, you can't just jump into a house anyways. That's just really weird. But anywho, when I asked that, he was pretty much like, no, I mean the responsibility of Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ is our responsibility. And I was that didn't really make any sense. But then he started yelling too, and he was just getting scarier. And he was like, when you, what was it that he said? It was something else about the responsibility of Jesus. Oh yeah, our responsibility is Jesus Christ, and our responsibility is to live for Jesus Christ, and to do stuff for Jesus Christ, and yeah. And it's like, this goes back to the whole let me help the lunatic thing. People either don't care about what somebody has going on, or they're a predatory person who wants to try to like either play the hero and use somebody as a charity case because they feel like it gets them into heaven, or they what was it? I don't even know. I talk about it all the time in my Let Me Help the Lunatic playlist. Like, as I've said before, there's honestly more things to worry about than sexual predators, and at the end of the day, half everybody has paraphilias and is hypersexual or stuff like that, and generally just about everybody's an amphibophile or hebephile. So, like, the sexual predator thing, or just like, I wouldn't even say sexual predators, the sexual risk, I could say, with people your age, older, and younger, that's always going to be there. But it's really other predatory people they have to worry about. Not that these people are necessarily that bad, but I do feel like if I was to actually really spend like some hours or a day with them or some days with them, yeah, some weird stuff would definitely happen. And I think that was generally it for my part 2, which is, or I guess this is the pre-part 1. The first part was the part 0. This is the pre-part 1. Oh wait, no. And I may mention this at the beginning of my real part 1 as well. So another issue with or a number 1 issue with Christendom or whatever it's called. No one can explain the actual reason for the death or the cross. The death on the cross and the tearing of the veil, or the blood meaning. And it's like they always talk about the cross and what Jesus did on the cross. And they act like the Bible isn't about anything else, or even that the original faith that was called the Way didn't have more meaning to it. They just like make it about the gospel, and then they can't even explain that right. Neither the Protestant or other Christian branch Gentiles, the Europeans that have taken over the book and took out most of the books that they now call the Bible, and have made Christendom, which is all pagan, and not even the true Yasharel Protestants, which there's a lot that I could say about that. None of them really seem to even be able to explain the gospel right, but they always run around talking about the gospel or the cross. And then they don't even get that the cross is a pagan symbol. They like walk around with cross necklaces and stuff. And then some say he was hung from a tree anyways, really. But anyway, to get to the point. The actual reason for the death on the cross and why it had to happen is that there's spiritual laws put in place, and that the Creator, Yah, he can't change, and he can't change his mind, and once something is set, it is what it is. And there were already laws of the spirit realm that weren't supposed to be broken. And once they're broken, people, or any being really, technically had to go to hell, which wasn't supposed to be for human beings originally anyways, but that's kind of a side thing. And so, the thing was that only the Trinity doctrine really screws stuff up and really confuses people and has a lot of falsehoods to it. But so they say, like God sent himself in human form, but it seems like there was already a quote unquote son. But anywho, I'm just gonna say what they say to make it less confusing. Quote unquote God sent himself in human form to die for people's sins. And the reason for that was that was the only sacrifice that could actually really I used to explain it better. Now I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. It was the only thing that could really reconcile for the breaking of the laws of the spirit realm and break the veil to where even tainted souls or spirits or whatever could still go into the holy realm. And that's really how it's supposed to go, but I don't even really feel like I explained it how I wanted to. I've explained it better before, but now I just screwed it up. So yeah, pretty much there's already laws put in the spirit realm that couldn't be broken, that nobody could go around, and they just were what they were. And so a supernatural being that was all pure had to like be the sacrifice. And then that also goes into why and after quote unquote Jesus died on the cross, the veil in the temple broke, it ripped in half, because now quote unquote Jesus was the high priest, and now people could go to quote unquote God, the creator, and pray to him and stuff. And it wasn't like only true Yasharel or true Yasharel's high priests that were part of the Levitical priesthood could. It wasn't like that anymore, because the spiritual sacrifice had already happened. How else could I explain it? And like pretty much like due to the sin nature, people couldn't human beings were separated from the creator, which the meaning of hell really is the absence of the creator, which is the absence of light, peace, joy, what's the other word, fellowship, etc., etc. And I didn't explain it how I really wanted to, but that's what that was really supposed to be about. But it's like, I mean, I know for people that don't get it, it's always going to sound weird, but Christians make it sound really, really weird because they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even know how to explain it. They don't even know what it means. They don't even understand it. And so they just run around talking about a sacrifice in the blood and a guy on a cross and a Nordic pleading Aryan who has on fingernail polish and is a European or a Roman with long hair at that. They just screw it all up and they make all of it really not make sense. And it already isn't going to make sense to certain people, but they make it worse. And then number 2, oh yeah, I heard this on a Christian radio station that was playing in one of the resource centers. This goes back. Wait, this goes black. It does go black. It goes back and it goes black. But this goes back to replacement theory, which is a big issue of Christianity. From them lying about who the actual people of the book are, and them praising and sending millions of dollars to some Europeans running around Northeast Africa that traffic their own kids, to them just saying, screw them and screw true Yasharel. The Christians are the real people now, and they're the people of the book now, and that's what the book is really about, and we are the salt of the earth, and none of that is what that meant. In fact, there's even a Christian dating app called Salt. Christians were never, when it said that my people are the salt of the earth, that it wasn't talking about Christdom or any of that bullcrap in general. It was talking about true Yasharel. I mean, maybe you can make it to mean believers, but Christdom and that Protestant, pagan, and even Catholic, none of that stuff was what was meant by that at all. So anywho, I wrote, quote unquote, "This is a sound of dry bones rattling." This is a song that I heard on the radio station, as I kind of already said. And whatever sound he's talking about, no, it's not. The dry bones is supposed to mean the regathering and the reawakening of true Yasharel, which is not those Europeans running around Northeast Africa dying of melanoma, essaying and trafficking their own kids. And it's not those people. And it's like, it's just another issue with Christianity in general, replacement theory, and yeah, so the dry bones, the salt of the earth, that's not quote unquote, I mean, that's not Christians. And even the term Christian, like, that was actually made by Europeans as an insult. It actually means poor Christ. So there's that. And then this is my pre part 1. And then I could also say that my whole playlist in my video that's over an hour long about what I like to call 6 commandment culture is another big issue with religion. And like I've always said, I noticed that, or like I've said for years now, I've noticed that atheists and religious people have the same talking points. People generally believe that you're supposed to be a martyr and that